question, Sir James Cleverly, Shadow Secretary of State.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. If you'll make a statement on the cancellation of the scheduled local government elections in May 2026.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Right Honourable Gentleman for his question. We are undertaking a once-in-a-generation reorganisation of local government. We have now received proposals from all areas and from councils across the political spectrum. For decades, the two-tier council system, where it still exists, has made local government more complicated and more bureaucratic than it needs to be. This government is bold enough to change that. We will put in place single-tier councils everywhere by the end of this Parliament. That will mean faster local decisions to build homes and grow our towns and cities. It will bring services like housing and social care under one roof, making them more effective and responsive to what communities need. And it will end the duplication that sees two sets of chief executives, two sets of councillors, which creates confusion and waste for local taxpayers. This is a proven model, and when we change to unitaries, we never see calls for a return to two-tier local government. Madam Deputy Speaker, on the 18th of December, I updated the House on our plans to seek council's views on their elections in May. There is clear precedent for postponing elections due to local government reorganisation, and the previous government postponed many elections between 2019 and 2022 to smooth the transition to new councils. I therefore wrote to 63 councils undergoing reorganisations with elections in May. We asked them if postponing their elections could release essential capacity to deliver reorganisation and to allow it to progress effectively. It's only right that we listen to councils when they're expressing concerns about their capacity. Local leaders know their areas best and are best placed to judge their own capacity. And as we have said, should a council say that it has no reason to delay, then we will listen. If a council voices genuine concerns, we will take these seriously. Madam Deputy Speaker, we're running a legally robust and fair process, and all representations are now being considered before decisions taken. The Secretary of State has also written to 4 councils asking for more clarity on their position by 10 a.m. tomorrow, and these councils are Essex County Council, Norfolk County Council, Oxford City Council and Southampton City Council. As I've said, no decisions have been made, but we want to make them as quickly as possible to give councils certainty, and we'll update Parliament on decisions in the usual way.
Shadow Secretary of State.
Madam Deputy Speaker, this government has moved seamlessly from arrogance to incompetence and now cowardice. 3.7 million people are being denied the right to vote. It was the government that rushed a huge programme of local government reorganisation, imposing new structures, imposing timetables, and it is the government that is failing to deliver them. And rather than take responsibility for its own failure, the Secretary of State has chosen to dump the consequences of their incompetence onto the laps of local councils. The government's own election strategy said, and I quote, "The right to participate in our democracy should not be taken for granted." Cancelling elections was not part of that strategy. The Electoral Commission has been clear that the scheduled elections should go ahead as planned, and that capacity constraints are not a legitimate reason for delay. So, why was the Electoral Commission not consulted on these cancellations? Why is this being done at the last possible moment? And does the government accept the Gould principle that at least 6 months' notice should be given for any changes to election administration? Ministers say they are following the wishes of local councils. And the Minister said at the dispatch box that the Secretary of State has written, amongst others, to Essex County Council. But the leader of Essex County Council has been clear that these elections should go ahead. And yet, the Secretary of State still cites Essex, amongst others, to justify the cancellations. And it's all well and good for the Secretary of State to write to the councils basically asking them the same question, but they have already given an answer. Yeah. So, when does the Secretary of State intend to lay the SIs for these areas? Does he think that it is appropriate to use secondary legislation under the Local Government Act? Did Parliament really allow ministers to run scared and cancel elections at will? Madam Deputy Speaker, I've always said these elections should go ahead, but the Secretary of State was the one that called these elections pointless. So why does he not have the courage of his own convictions, take responsibility for his own ineptitude and stop laying the blame on local councils?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the right honourable gentleman for the points that he has made, and I will certainly relay them to the Secretary of State so that he can take them under advisement. On the Electoral Commission, we wrote to the Electoral Commission to notify them we're grateful for their ongoing engagement, and we will certainly have regard to all views and representations made, including theirs. But this is fundamentally about local councils and their capacity, and that's why we've asked for representations from them. On the Gould principle, he asked about the Gould principle. The need for certainty underpins that principle to make sure that if there are technical changes, that those responsible for the delivery of elections could have time to adapt, but this is not about technical changes. We are listening to Council's views about their capacity in the context of local government reorganisation. And finally, he asks when the Secretary of State will take decisions. We've moved quickly to get these representations from councils, and the Secretary of State will take a decision as soon as he possibly can.
Chair of the Select Committee, Florence Eshalomi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I thank the Shadow Secretary of State for raising this issue. This is an important issue, and I think I accept the Minister highlighted that there are concerns from councils, but again, we find ourselves here in quite a disappointing area, and this is quite disappointing. The Minister highlighted just before Christmas the fact that councils were asked to delay this, and after the Secretary of State had repeatedly told our Select Committee that this would be going ahead. And as a former election organiser, there'll be key dates etched in a lot of our minds. It's 108 days till polling day. For a number of people who have to reapply for postal votes, 31st of January deadline, April deadline to register to vote. We want people to vote. So I'm concerned that we are seeing a postponement yet again. Can the Minister outline when this government will make the final decisions, and do they plan to reject any of the requests for delays? The Minister also outlined the fact that they want councils to be up to date and not having to stress with the reorganisation. Reorganisation will take a lot of time, it will take a lot of resources, but we have a situation where we are effectively asking councils to choose between running day-to-day services or running an election. It shouldn't be either or. We should have councils in the state to be able to deliver those services. So can the Minister outline that she's confident that the reorganisation will not distract hard-working frontline staff and that residents across the country who rely on those council day-to-day services?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Chair of the Select Committee for her questions. She mentions how important it is for elections to take place, and as she knows, large numbers of people will be voting in May. We're talking about a relatively discrete number of local authorities undergoing reorganisation. She asked when the Secretary of State will take the decision. He will do that as soon as he possibly can, and we've set out the further information that we have asked for. And she asks about resources. This is really important because the whole point of reorganisation is to make sure that we use our resources in the best way possible. It bears repeating, as I've done on many occasions in this House, that local authorities bore the brunt of austerity. We've reconnected council funding with deprivation, and I am anxious to make sure that all local authorities move towards financial sustainability, and I look forward to discussing that with her committee further.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Zoe Franklin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I find it really interesting that this urgent question comes from the Conservative Party, who themselves have sought to cancel local elections this year and last year in Surrey. Given the honourable member for Braintree's professed concern for democracy, I hope he will commit to supporting Lord Pack's amendment in the other place, removing the Secretary of State's power to change the timing of local elections. That said, it is the Labour Party who are the main offenders when it comes to cancelling elections and appear to be running scared.
Order. I do want to hear what the Liberal Democrat spokesperson has got to say, as do my constituents, as do all our constituents, Zoe Franklin.
That said, it is the Labour Party who are the main offenders when it comes to cancelling elections and appear to be running scared from the ballot box rather than trusting voters. So does the Minister accept that cancelling elections risks setting a dangerous precedent that elections become optional when they are inconvenient to those in power? And what message does this send to residents about the value of local government if their right to vote can be so easily set aside? Democracy is right, not a matter of convenience.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the Honourable Lady for powering through despite commentary from the opposition front bench. She asked about the importance of democracy. Of course, it's very important. The vast majority of elections are going ahead next year. A huge number of people will be voting, and it is important that that principle is stuck to, and we will take the decisions based on the evidence and the precedent that I've set out in response to other members.
Graham Stringer.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as a former leader of a major council and a Labour MP, I find this completely embarrassing. Our Labour government should not be taking the vote away from 3.7 million people. It is completely unprecedented for a Labour government to do that. And I'd like to ask my honourable friend on the front bench, there is clearly a vested interest from some councillors who may feel, looking at the opinion polls, that they will lose their seat. Some of those councillors will vote for delay. How will she distinguish between that motivation and whether or not there really is a lack of capacity to carry out the elections? Because I don't believe any of those councils are unable to hold those elections.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank my friend for his question and the views that he expresses, which I'll be certain to pass on to the Secretary of State as he takes his decision. In the statement before Christmas, I set out the kind of evidence that we are looking for, and that's the kind of thing that we'll take into consideration.
Sir John Whittingdale.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A year ago, ministers told council leaders in Essex that it was necessary to postpone elections to facilitate reorganisation to, quote, the most ambitious timetable. A year later, there has been absolutely no progress, and we don't even know how many authorities are proposed. Was it not wrong to cancel elections last year and wrong to cancel them again this year?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We have made progress on the reorganisation, and I anticipate us making strong progress this year. I hear the points that he makes about his own views, and those will be taken account of alongside the other views expressed.
Chris Curtis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Local elections will be going forward in full in Milton Keynes this year, and I look forward to continuing working with my brilliant, hard-working Labour councillors. The ongoing process of reorganisation is delaying elections, but it's also delaying the creation of new combined authorities across many parts of the country. Given that, will the department look again at the fast-track process and whether places which have already gone through reorganisation are fully unitarised, like Bedfordshire and Milton Keynes, should be added to that programme, and the creation of new combined authorities should be sped up in those places, given it's taking some time in others?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank my friend for his question. Coming myself from an area with a unitary council and a combined authority that is taking steps to improve public transport and other things, I appreciate fully the points that he makes, and I'll pass those on to the Minister for Devolution.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Only dictators cancel elections, as well as Labour, Conservative and Lib Dem councils that are terrified of facing the wrath of the voters. So we will be carrying out a judicial review of this decision, this appalling decision to cancel elections. Could the Minister confirm, if the noble judges rule in our favour that this is the wrong thing to do, Will the government abide by the ruling of the judges?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. He mentions a legal process which I'm not at liberty to comment on in detail, but we want elections to go ahead unless there is a strong justification. That's what we've said and that's what we'll stick to.
Helena Dolimore.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many people I represent in Hastings and Rye don't understand why we have this inefficient, duplicative, confusing system of two-tier councils at the moment. And they're looking forward to having one council and this process going ahead. But as we await that process, it's really important that the councils we have remain responsive to our constituents' needs. To give one example, next month I'm organising a meeting about local bus services in my constituency, and I've invited East Sussex County Council, run by the Conservatives, as the responsible transport authority. They are currently refusing to send anyone to that meeting about local bus services. Does the Minister agree with me that this is unacceptable, particularly because they've been given a record amount of money by this Labour government, over £10 million, to improve our bus services, and my constituents want to tell them their experiences of buses?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank my friend for that question. Given the amount of times that buses have been raised with me when I've been door-knocking in elections, I'm often surprised that buses don't lead the news more often. So I congratulate her on her efforts to get decent bus services for her constituents. I would say to any local authority that if they want to engage with residents on the things that they care about, buses should be top of their list.
Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Madam Deputy Speaker, is it just a coincidence that the only three councils in Essex that want to cancel the elections, Basildon, Harlow and Thurrock, are all run by the Labour Party, but all the others, Essex, Braintree, Chelmsford, Colchester, Brentwood, Epping Forest, Rochford and Southend, they want the elections to go ahead. Is she going to listen to the majority?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable gentleman for his question and the right honourable gentleman. I do beg his pardon. I'd like to thank him for the points that he raises. I've set out the way in which we're consulting with local authorities, and the Secretary of State will take the decision accordingly.
Julie Minns.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as the Minister has already mentioned, the previous government postponed elections in 2021, including in my constituency of Carlisle. Does the Minister agree with the words of the Right Honourable Member for Newark, who was the Community Secretary at the time, who I note is not in either of his recent places in this chamber, that holding elections in such circumstances, those circumstances being local government reorganisation, risked confusing voters and would be hard to justify where members could be elected to serve shortened terms?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I don't know about agreeing with the member for Newark, but I certainly agree with her. She gets to the point that we're trying to make, and we're acting in accordance with precedent. She makes the point very well.
Josh Babarinde.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In Eastbourne, Conservative-run East Sussex County Council is one of the worst in the country for potholes, the second highest number of compensation payouts in total, and it has resurfaced 0 roads in the coming year, the top worst. Yet the people of East Sussex do not currently have a say. When can they expect to hear from the Minister or the Secretary of State about when they can kick out this Conservative council that is squatting in County Hall?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. Potholes is probably second only to buses in the important issues. We won't have any undue delay, and the Secretary of State will have more to say quite soon.
Phil Brickell.
Madam Deputy Speaker, does the Minister agree with me that the truth of the matter is there's actually a lot of false information flying around? Actually, in Bolton, we're very much looking forward to having local elections in May. Can the Minister confirm that has always been the correct case, as it has been in the other 9 boroughs in Greater Manchester, and that actually words to the opposite effect are simply false information?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank my friend for his question. He's right, of course. Elections are taking place up and down the country, and I'm sure there are lots of people who are looking forward to participating.
David Reid.
Thank you, Speaker. The good people of Exeter want their elections to go ahead as planned in May. Yet the Labour supermajority in both Exeter City Council and the supermajority here in Westminster leaves no realistic prospect of fighting that decision. So does the Minister agree with me that Exeter City Council are quickly losing their democratic mandate and moving to some form of local tin pot autocracy?
Minister.
Let me thank the gentleman for his question. I don't agree with him, but on the substantive point that he makes, I've heard his views and I'll pass them on to the Secretary of State.
Mark Francois.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. No taxation without representation. Councillor Kevin Bentley, the dynamic Conservative leader of Essex County Council, has been adamant they should go ahead. On the 14th of January, he wrote to the Minister, "You may be aware that at our full council on the 9th of December, I stated that Essex County Council would not be calling for the postponement of elections in May 2026. This continues to be our position." What was ambiguous about that, or are Labour simply running scared?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable gentleman for his question, for relaying the words of Councillor Kevin Bentley, who it's been a pleasure to meet on a number of occasions. I think getting a clear position is obviously important. We'll do that quickly, and the Secretary of State will. The Secretary of State will. The Secretary. I don't know. There may have been more context than that one quote, but the Secretary of State. No, you're fine. The Secretary of State will take into account those representations and others and make a decision without any undue delay.
John Mill.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Conservative-run West Sussex County Councillors applied for the second year running to council local elections, where they faced wipeout. Their excuse is that it would be too hard to organise. But it's the 7 district and borough councils who run the elections, not county. So will the Minister speak to the councils who have an actual democratic mandate, rather than the county administration trying to cling to power long past its sell-by date?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. We're in regular contact with local authorities. The department and myself and the Secretary of State will have heard what he said, and we'll make sure those views are fed in.
Gagan Mahindra.
Thank you. As the House may be aware, I was a councillor at 3 different local levels, both parish, district and county. I know several honourable, right honourable members have referred to the proposals as being either single tier or 2-tier. Can I gently remind them that parishes and towns will remain, so it's a 2-tier as a minimum. Can I just repeat the question that was asked earlier? When will all these councils know for definite if and when their elections are going to be held later this year?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just to respond again, we've moved quickly. We're getting the information that we need, and the Secretary of State will move as quickly as he can to take the decision. And it's good to know that we've got members with extensive experience in the House, and I thank him for all he's done down the years.
Lewis Cocky.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Conservative-run Broxbourne Council want their elections to go ahead, and the people of Broxbourne should be allowed their choice on the 7th of May. However, under the devolution plans, it could see us merge with Labour Stevenage and coalition Labour and Liberal Democrat Welwyn Hatfield, who both want their elections to be cancelled. So, Conservative-run Broxbourne Council want their elections to go ahead. I, as the Conservative Member of Parliament for Broxbourne, want the elections to go ahead. The people of Broxbourne want their elections to go ahead. Can the Minister categorically confirm to my constituents that local elections in Broxbourne will go ahead on the 7th of May?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his question. I've said on a number of occasions we want the elections to go ahead unless there's a justified reason. He makes his point on behalf of his constituents in the context of reorganisation, and I will take that under advisement as we move forward.
Sir Julian Lewis.
If a future political researcher decides to write a thesis about the influence of adverse opinion polls on the cancellation of local elections in Britain, will the Minister, amiable as she always is, make herself available?
Thanks, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I'd like to thank the honourable gentleman for his kind question. And I would say that I hope at that point I might be doing something else other than politics, and perhaps I might not quite have time.
Sammy Wilson.
Speaker, people in Northern Ireland on a day-to-day basis know well how casually the democratic process can be set aside, not just by this government but by the previous government, when permission was given to the EU to impose its laws on the people of Northern Ireland without any say at all. Now the people of England are beginning to experience that. 3.7 million people who would want to vote against the £280 million of additional taxes imposed on them by Labour councils will now be denied the ability to have their say. Is it that the government is running scared of reform, or is it that they simply don't want to be held to account, and do they not realise that behaving like this turns the United Kingdom into some kind of third world dictatorship?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the honourable gentleman for his question, which I take in the serious tones in which it's meant. The vast majority of elections are going ahead. It's very important that people have their say. I hope he will appreciate the way I've set out previously the reason why we've taken these steps and the manner in which we'll take the decision. But he makes a very important point about the centrality of democracy, which I take seriously.
Joe Robertson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I refer to my register of interest in that I'm a serving Isle of Wight councillor. Local government reorganisation in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight is a mess. Meanwhile, the government is proposing to cut £13 million of funding from our Isle of Wight council. We're due to have elections in just 3.5 months' time. Our council wants those elections to go ahead and wants to prepare for them. Will the Minister confirm we can do that and those elections will go ahead on the Isle of Wight in May?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And as I've said to other ministers, where councils want to go ahead and they've got the capacity and there's no issues, that's fine. Elections go ahead unless there's a strong justification. Why not? Which is what I would... Where councils want the elections to go ahead, that's fine, and we'll listen to what they've got to say. The issue that the member raises about funding and capacity is an important one, not least in a place as unique as the Isle of Wight. We're currently in a process considering the local government finance settlement, and he'll know that we're working very hard to try and get that right.
Sarah Perchin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last year, the Junior Housing Minister stood at that dispatch box and said, and I quote, "Local council elections are happening in 2026. We are cracking on with them." For some communities, this is the second year in a row that the elections have been cancelled. How does the Minister expect the British people to believe anything this government says or have any faith in their commitment to democracy?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the honourable lady for her question. Elections will be happening up and down this country in May. We're committed to democracy, and it's very important that people have their say.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The honourable lady is a very honourable lady in her response and the way that she does things in the House. But the fact is, whatever it be down to reorganisation, whether it be down to a new strategy, whatever the reasons that the government or the Minister puts forward, the fact is 3.7 million people will see it a denial of their right to cast their vote. 3.7 million people will see it as a denial of their franchise. So it will mean that people reduce their confidence in government and indeed in the Minister and local government as well. So what will the Minister and government do to restore that confidence in light of the denial of their franchise and their right to express themselves democratically?
Where's the Secretary of State?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to thank the honourable gentleman for his question and for the attention and care with which he gives these issues. And he gives me the opportunity to come back to the underlying reason for this whole process, which is reorganisation to get councils in a good position once those areas that are undergoing that reorganisation, once we've got those new institutions set up, which we're doing without delay, then people will be able to elect those new institutions. That's what's happened where we've had reorganisation previously, as has been mentioned, where this process has been gone through recently, and that will mean people can elect their councils and have their say about the kind of public services they want in their area.
And that concludes the urgent question. Point of order, Sir James Cleverly.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Lady, and again, just in the final comments she made, referred to the cancellation or the delay of the 2020 local government elections as being justified by the reorganisation of local government. That is a factual error. They were quite unambiguously delayed because we were in the middle of a global pandemic. How is it best to correct the record with regards to the reason those elections were delayed?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his point of order. That is a continuation of debate, and I am not responsible for the Minister's comments. However, he has put his point of view on the record. That does conclude the urgent question. We now move on to the next urgent question. Point of order, Sir Bernard Jenkins.
Madam Speaker, I must correct the record. Harlow Council is a Conservative council, but that's the exception that then proves the rule, that they're otherwise all Labour councils.
I thank the honourable gentleman for his point of order, and he's now corrected his record. We now move on to the next urgent question. I'll give a few moments for the front benches to reorganise.